Welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Mindset, Scotland's #1 health, fitness and entertainment podcast. Today's episode, as you can guess by the title, is the 3 common mistakes that everyone is making while taking Ozempic, Wegovy, or even if you're on a diet. Now, this isn't just a clickbaity title. These are genuinely 3 mistakes that I see happen, but in today's episode, I give you the counters of what you can do to overcome those mistakes or avoid them completely. Now, I'll open up today's episode, roughly about 5 to 10 minutes chat about an important lesson I learned this week. So if you're not interested in that, you can just skip by that. But before we get into today's episode, there's just one thing I need you to do. If you're new around here, every Monday and Thursday at 6 a.m, I release a new episode. Mondays is usually a deep dive episode. There's just a solo one. And Thursdays is typically a guest episode where we dive into their story or bring an old guest on and dive into their expertise. Now, the best way you can support me in this podcast that I am doing is by subscribing on YouTube or leaving a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you're listening to this. It genuinely really helps. It's free to do. It maybe takes you less than 10 seconds to do. So if you haven't, then look, it would mean the world to me. And yeah, I think that's enough begging. Let's get into today's episode. So normally I open up these episodes with some sort of quote, some sort of statement, impacting statement. And I was thinking about what do I open up with for tonight's episode. Well, this week I planned to record this episode on Thursday. It is now Sunday, 10:30 p.m, should I may add. And this episode needs to be edited, so it's going to be probably about 1 o'clock in the morning to be uploaded for 6 a.m. And this is can you hear that wheeziness in my voice? Excuse me. And this is probably the latest I have ever recorded a podcast episode. And I was thinking to myself, why hasn't it crossed my mind to just patch recording this and upload the Monday's episode on a Tuesday? What is the big deal? And I think this is one thing I hope for all of you that are listening to this can find something that you're so passionate about, you care so much, that you have such a high standards and a high regard that you want to maintain a level of consistency and discipline towards. And that's what I feel like with these episodes. For 25th of August, 26 if you're listening to this in the day of release. Maybe it's the 2nd of September if you're a week later. But we are approaching 2 whole years where every single Monday and every single Thursday there has been an episode published on Bulletproof Mindset. And that's something I'm incredibly proud of. Of course, James played a big part in that, but the mantle is now mine. This is my show, and this is the standard that I want to continue with. I do it for the love of showing up for you guys. And if I think that, albeit it won't be a big deal if I release the episode on the Tuesday and called it a night tonight, deep down I think that starts to break away, like whether it's confidence or discipline or consistency in other areas of my life, because there's a crack in the mindset at that point. And ironically, this ties into the whole bulletproof mindset, the whole point of the show. And having a bulletproof mindset by no means necessary is that you can't have low days and you can't miss the target a little bit. But it's about showing up and being as resilient as you can, learning from the lows, enjoying the highs, but also allowing yourself to project yourself forward. So, yeah, my hope for you guys is that you have find something in your life, because a lot of people look at someone who's consistently killing their workouts. They have such a deep purpose for why they're working out. It may be a photo shoot, it may be a holiday, it may be the wedding dress, but that purpose is driving them towards that. So find something you care about, find something you love. And I'll flip this and I'll say that my brother's just bought, him and his girlfriend just bought their first home. And you think, why on earth would you stay all day painting, ripping out, skirting, doing all these tedious tasks you don't want to do? It's because it's not his purpose, but there is a job there and work that needs to be done, and you have the ability to put that energy and focus into anything you love in life, right? Don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough, because you're good enough now. You genuinely are. There was a Gary Vee was on, or a clip of Gary Vee where a fan had met him, And she's like, one day I'm gonna be someone, Gary. It's such a beautiful interaction where Gary's like holds her and he's like, you're somebody now. So remember that. You are somebody now, and you have the power to love and live your life to its fullest extent by enjoying something that you find joy in. Right, today's episode, we're continuing the theme of Ozempic, semaglutides, GLP-1, Wegovy, anything that falls under the category of fat loss drugs, or these drugs that aid, or miracle drugs that aid the whole weight loss journey. Today is going to be the 3 mistakes you want to avoid if you're going to go down this path. Now, really quickly, if you're someone who's like, I'm not really interested in this Ozempic shit, right? Or this Wegovy shit, like, I've made my mind up. I just think this is a silly approach for most people. I don't care. Shared the stat in the previous episode, if you never listened to that over 50% of adults in the next 3 years are going to have an experience with Ozempic. So it could be your friend, it could be a parent, it could be a cousin, an auntie. But the whole idea is that there is going to be a strong argument for it and a strong argument against it. And the whole point and the whole purpose of these episodes is to communicate real information that you can make your own mind up from a non-biased point of view and walk away with the information that you can then go, right, that makes sense, or I'm going to take this, but I'm going to listen to mistakes to avoid, or I'm not going to take this because I'm going to try XYZ approach. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, before we get into that, why the hell am I recording this episode so damn late? Well, folks, actions have consequences. If you are someone who is running your own business, maybe you're a sole trader, wherever you fall in the hierarchy of employed, self-employed, whatever it is that you do, we all have these to-do lists, right? Whether that's a to-do list in your house or it's a to-do list at work. And there's always that one task that props up that you go, I'm going to put that in on this specific day at this time. However, it's a wee bit of a floater task. It can move about. It can be very dynamic in the flow of how your day's going, and it can be moved on to the next day, or it can be brought forward a day, or it can be done a little bit later. Well, that floater task for me was recording this episode. I blocked some time out of my diary on Thursday. I can't even remember what happened now because it was a couple of days ago, but I realised, I was like, yeah, you know what, I'll just do that on Friday. Then Friday came about and I was like, I'll do it Saturday. Saturday came around, again, very, very quickly. The day was gone. I was like, uh-oh, I have made a big mistake. So Sunday, here is my new schedules for Sunday. I will be getting up to the gym here at Bulletproof Studios HQ, and from 8:30 to 9:45 there is a parents and kids lifting club that I've launched, and this is essentially where we lift weights inside the gym within that hour, a bit of mobility, a bit of fun, a bit of teaching the kids how to lift, and also enjoying lifting weights with the family, I guess. And this is open to anyone. This is completely free. So that runs from that block. And over the last 5 weeks, I've been running the OG lifting club, I guess I'm going to call it, where parents and kids were coming to that, but that was just like close friends and family and stuff like that. But it was mainly for 16 and overs, and you get a good strong workout in, full body routines, a lot of compound lifts, nice and controlled sets, none of this kind of just rattling hundreds of exercise out. Anyway, that runs from 10 to 11. So then I was thinking to myself, well, there's plenty of time on Sunday. Record about midday. Studio was hired out from 12 till 1ish. And then I forgot I agreed to go to my friend Gio's Mindset meetup. He does these once a month. These are extremely good, so shout out to him. He's been on the show before. Once a month he meets up with the crew. Again, it's a free to join experience, so we normally pick a hill somewhere. I say we, he normally picks a hill somewhere. Everyone sort of arrives there for 2 p.m, climb the hill, back down, and then have a good time with some people you've never met before. And so that was at 2 o'clock. The weather was horrendous today, so by the time I got back it was like 7 p.m. I've then farted about for a couple of hours, and now, as I said, it's about 10:30 p.m, and I'm like, shit, I need to get shit done. So remember, with that to-do list, guys, that floater task, don't put it off. When you block time out to do whatever to-do list it is that you have, just get it done, right? Future you will genuinely thank you. But yeah, here we are. Doesn't matter what time I do this, I'm here for you guys, and I love it. Now, this episode I actually mapped out earlier in the week, so this is why it's maybe a wee bit easier to record this late. So the idea for today's episode, as I said, is 3 mistakes that a lot of people are making when they go on their Ozempic weight loss journey or their Wegovy weight loss journey. It doesn't matter what they're using. These mistakes are the 3 common mistakes that happen across the board. And I'll go one further. These 3 mistakes is for those that anyone that goes on a weight loss diet make. So let's recap a little bit. If you haven't listened to the last episode, which was on what is Ozempic, what's the sort of pros and cons, and what do you need to know, there's a baseline level of information in there, and I tried my best to really dumb it down. So I'll link that below here, but it's 2 episodes ago. You should be able to find that. You're clever enough. You'll be able to do that. Now, in summary, these drugs are becoming more and more popular. If you're interested in investing in stocks and shares, I would definitely get behind some of the large pharmaceuticals that are creating these drugs, because your share price is going to go through the roof. When you look at obesity and the cost that it has on our population, whether that's in the UK or the US, it is worth billions and billions of pounds, right? So there is always going to be solutions. There's always going to be drugs that penetrate that market to try and solve that situation, all right? So whether you agree with this or not, recap on what I said on the previous episode was essentially these drugs is modifying, some of them are modifying our brain chemistry, some of them are modifying our digestive hormones, but essentially they're helping us suppress our appetite and suppress our hunger response, which is helping us, aid us eating less calories, right? That's all it does in theory. Or that's all it does when you break it down, not in theory. That's what the chemical reaction or biological reaction, whatever you want to brand this as, that's what it does to our body. Now, what I was saying in the last episode was, why on earth wouldn't you want to take this? Dieting can be freaking hard, and I know there's a maybe about 5% of you guys that's like, oh, just suck it up and get fucking on with it. If it was that easy, we wouldn't have an obesity crisis, right? If the whole movement of you just need to eat less and move more was a strong enough statement, so many people would follow it, but they don't. So we need to go into a deeper level of understanding and kind of work out and reverse engineer how can we help these people? Because if that message doesn't hit them, then do we just give up? Of course not. We want to help as many people as we can. And my mission is to help as many people as I can, particularly get into lifting weights, building stronger and healthier lifestyles. You definitely want to avoid these 3 mistakes. And I'm not saying this from a clickbaity point of view, but if you want to have the most amount of success on your weight loss journey, which is being masked, essentially it's a fat loss journey that you want to be on, then we need to follow the counter arguments to these mistakes. So let's get into it. Mistake number 1, and this one might shock you, but it's not tracking, not your calories, but your muscle mass. Yes, I'm going to repeat that again. Not tracking your muscle mass is the first mistake that a lot of people will make when they go on their diet, when they go on their weight loss journey, or more importantly, when they go into this Ozempic Wegovy journey. Now, why is this important? Well, if we just lose weight, there is going to be some positive markers in that where your body mass comes down, you start maybe feeling a wee bit better, you find that maybe some of the other medications that you're on, like blood pressure and whatever else it is, you can start to come off some of those things because you are scaling down the size that you are as a human being. But the consequences of that, if a majority of that or 50% of that is body fat and the other 50% of it is muscle mass, then you'll become weaker. You'll become a little bit more lethargic. You'll find yourself hormonally getting a bit fucked up. And I mean, by your skin, your hair, your nails, you can see a negative response in that front. Your joints can get a wee bit sore. You start to develop some chronic pain, arthritis. These are things that happen to us all as we age. But if there's one thing called the fountain of youth of what we can do to slow that process down and reverse it, then this would be the argument for lifting weights in a simple manner. Now, lifting weights can be so many, you can get into this in so many different ways, and that, again, we might touch on some of that in today's episode, but that'll be more of a breakdown in a future episode, because I want to back it up with a free program that if it's something that you're interested in and trying, then there is some sort of structure that you can follow. So why is it important to track muscle mass? Well, if you think about it, you might be very happy with what you see in the scales, but again, back to the message I said on the last episode, does the scales define how you are? Do the scales define how you feel? And the answer is no. Well, for some people, it could actually mean yes. It can make or break their day. But say you jump on that scale and you're like, brilliant, 10 kilos down. Well done. But then you kind of look at your body mass, however you've tracked your body mass percentage, and you find out that 5 kilos of that was muscle. Now, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you keep following that path, then you're like, I'm leading to a lifestyle that I think I want, but knowing everything that is going to come along with reducing my muscle mass, that weight in the scale is not going to matter anymore, because you're going to prefer having more body fat and feeling the way you used to than you did where you're going. Does that make sense? Hopefully that does make sense. I'm asking as if you can talk to me, but you can't. Right. So, kind of recapping, you lose the weight and you start to develop some of these side effects where you have a weakened state body. You become, by definition, skinnier, but also higher body fat, because you've lost the lean tissue that kind of gives us shape, gives us strength, gives us resilience, gives us energy, cognition, helps us with transferring blood all around the body. The list is endless. The list is generally endless. So we want to make sure that we're tracking muscle mass. We have a good start point, and every time, not necessarily I would say every week, but I'd say every month, every 4 to 6 weeks, interjecting that measurement with understanding where your muscle mass is. Now here's the tricky part, trying to measure muscle mass. If you want to do it with 100% accuracy, you're going to have to spend a fortune with the most advanced machines that are out there, but you can just use one of those electric impedance scales. This is where you stand on it. It sends it's not electric shock, but it measures how quick the frequency travels through your body, because our body's made up of these little energy signals, how far it travels around. It gives you a number. Now the number might not be accurate, but the number doesn't necessarily matter. All we want to make sure is that we use that same tool throughout this process. So if you do it on Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning before you've had breakfast, but after you've done the toilet, then guess what? See, in 4 weeks' time, we make sure it's in line with it's close to the same circumstances as we can. So 4 weeks from then, Monday, after your toilet, before breakfast, and that'll give you the most accurate sort of description. Now, don't freak out after 2 measurements or 2 data readings. Continue it. Get a bit of a theme. Imagine like you made decisions on this knee-jerk decision on everything that happened in life. Like, like my elbow's sore. You're just going to chop it off instead of going, maybe I should stretch the muscle, or maybe I should take a paracetamol, or maybe I should move it a little bit. You don't just write it off straight away. So don't do that with your weight loss journey as well when you're looking at your muscle mass. Now, more importantly, how on earth do you slow losing muscle down? Is it possible? Yes. Thankfully, yes. Now, a couple of things that you want to try and aim for. This is going to tie into some of the other points as well. Before we go into how to maintain muscle mass, let's play out a scenario that happens to every single one of us. This has happened to me in the past, and I've only just came to the realization of it recently. Now, let's say you have an experience, or we all know someone who's had an experience and they haven't used the gym to necessarily aid their weight loss. They've just used dieting. So most people that are going to jump on this drug are going to kind of park the gym to one side. But here's why that isn't a great idea. So you lose the weight, right? Let's say you lose the 10 kilo weight and you're like, brilliant, really happy with that. Even if you don't understand how much of that was muscle, we can make a strong argument that because you were consuming less calories and you weren't resistance training, then a good chunk of that is going to be muscle. Now, let's play out the scenario of what happens in majority of cases of weight loss. A year goes by, and once you've cycled off this drug or you've came away from the diet, you've gained the weight back. Are you back for a like-for-like situation or status than you were before you lost the weight? You're like, yeah, I gained 10 kilos back, so what's the harm? We haven't gained just the equally amount, the same muscle mass and fat back. You've gained majority fat back and little muscle mass. So you're actually in a unhealthier state. You now have more body fat on than you did before. So this is why weighting the scale is so freaking weird. It's weird how we just think of it as a number, but the number can mean many different things. This is why BMI has been getting slaughtered over the years. So recapping that again, you lose 10 kilos, you're happy with that 10 kilos, you're like, cool, yeah, I saw my waist come in, brilliant, I'm back the same weight I was when I was 23 or whatever it is. You come off the diet, or you come off the weight loss drugs, 6 months to a year goes by, you've gained the 10 kilos back, and you think, this feels different this time. And let's be honest, most of you deep down know it doesn't feel the same. That weight that you then reach again, you think, oh yeah, it's just how I was prior to dieting before or prior to taking this drug. But you do think to yourself, you're like, oh, is this what getting older feels like? Because I feel this one's on my waist a wee bit more. Well, you're right. Your body has lost that lean tissue to kind of give you your body shape and sculpture, and you have become fatter. You have more body fat on you. Fatter's not the right word. I don't like using that, but hopefully it kind of highlights the point that I'm trying to make here. So not utilising these next two things will guarantee that if you do gain any weight back, you're going to rapidly increase your body fat percentage and not in a healthy way that you want it to. So how do you maintain muscle mass? So it comes down to two things. Number one, we need an adequate amount of protein to help restore and regenerate those cells, help maintain that tissue. So how do you measure how many grams of protein to have? Well, if you're on a weight loss journey, you're probably not happy with the weight that you're sitting at. So think of your ideal weight, convert that to kilograms, and then multiply the kilograms by 2, right? So if you are like, I want to weigh 65 kilograms, I want to weigh 70 kilograms, I want to weigh 80 kilograms, times that by 2, and that is the amount of grams of protein that you're going to be aiming for. So for me, I'm sitting about 90. Every single day, I aim for 180 grams of protein. Now, if you go over, don't worry about it. If you go under, don't stress about it, but next day is a new day. Try and forward plan some of the things for your meals. That's number one. Number two, there has to be some element of resistance in our life. And this is why I always highlight resistance training. There has to be some sort of stress impact on our muscles, but not too much that we create crazy amounts of damage. This would fall into your CrossFit style of workouts, the high intensity workouts, the double days, the hybrid training days. Like, keep it simple. Like, we just want enough resistance in our body to maintain that muscle mass. And this is why compound exercises is the best strategy. Compound exercises like squats, deadlifts, these can be with dumbbells, barbells, they can be different variations. You only need like 4 or 5 variations of different compound movements and you are done. Like, that's as simple as it can be. It doesn't have to be a workout that blows your back out. Oh, hold up. What's the word I'm looking for? That you're blowing your ass off, but enough so that you're creating that stimulus. 2 sets. Like I said, I'll come back onto this in a future episode, but if I had to design one just off the top of my head just now, I would have a squat, I would have a deadlift, I would have an overhead press, I would have a row, and probably something that does some sort of unilateral movement, like a single leg stuff, so walking lunges. I would generally pick those 5 exercises, and I would do 2 sets, and I'd do anywhere from 8 to 10 reps. That's the window of rep range that I'd work in. Now, this would whoever I'm speaking to would depend on the person on how I change up this program. But most people who aren't into resistance training have this big fear of that it's very complex and scary and there's tons of, you have to do tons of exercises. You don't. You just have to have some sort of stimulus in there. So making sure those two things, your protein and your resistance training, and you will maintain a very healthy stature of muscle. I'd be very surprised if you lose any muscle throughout this process. If you're new to resistance training, you haven't really done it over the last 5 years, then you might even gain a little bit of muscle, but it's hard to gain muscle because you're eating less calories, okay? So just remember that as well. Okay, leading nicely on to mistake number 2. Going balls to the walls. Balls to the walls? Balls to the wall. Balls to the... I don't even know what I'm trying to say now. It's approaching midnight. Going balls to the wall with your workouts. You do not... If you have never been working out before, you take Ozempic, you're rushing this process, and you're like, I'm trying to lose as much weight as I possibly can. I'm going to take this drug, I'm going to eat less food, and then I'm also going to batter my body with 5-6 workouts. And that might be body pump, spin, going to the boxing class, going to my workout, you're just overloading your body, and there's no wonder you can't sleep at night. You have to live on coffee. You feel like you're just rattling all day because your body's in this fight or flight state. And if your body's in that state, it's going to be very stubborn with your weight loss. It's going to be very stubborn with your fat loss, and it's going to start to eat away at your muscle because it's the expensive tissue. Not to mention all the other side effects like losing your hair, feeling that your nails start to break, feeling that your skin's breaking out. There's so many things that can happen off the back of being highly stressed. And we think of stress can be a good thing, and it is a good thing if we create the environment, and that's why lifting weights is a great way of doing it, but there's a fine line with what we want to do. So how do you work out when you take something like Ozempic or Wegovy? Well, I would start with 1, maybe even 2 days per week, and that is it. And I'd start from the smaller side of things and start to ramp things up. I wouldn't go, all right, I've never done before, I've got all this fat to lose, I'm just going to go in with an hour workout. Why? Start with 20 minutes. You've never done a 20-minute workout in the last 6 months, or you've tried to. You've came to the odd class here and there, but you've never really committed to a structure that progressively overloads your resistance through that time. And that might look like 2 exercises. It might look like a bit of mobility in the morning. It may look like some sort of resistance band training, or even body weight as your resistance. The starting protocol for this should be you should honestly look at the workout and go, that looks too easy. Good. Fucking stick to it. Try it for a sec, and then start to work up the consistency with it every week, making one modify, adding in one exercise, or adding in an extra set, changing the rep ranges until the structure becomes there. So it's really good to work. Like coaches, I said on the last episode, you will miss a massive opportunity if you don't get behind this. You don't kind of have a little bit more empathy and understanding that we're not all created equal, and we have past traumas or past experiences that make it hard for some individuals to stick to a diet. So they're going to feel like, PTs don't listen to me. The PTs just think I need to move more and eat less, so I'm going to just take this drug because there's no judgment behind it. You're missing a big opportunity to help a lot of people here. As personal trainers, I'm speaking to you guys just now, you just came into this space because you liked the feeling of, wow, I can really change somebody's life by helping them get fitter, right? So don't write off anything, whatever your judgment is on it. The last thing we want to do is make someone feel judged. So, lost my train of thought and where that tangent was going. Back to exercise, start small, scale up, right? It's that simple. And I've reached out to a couple of people who I'm working with who are on Ozempic just now, and this is exactly what I've started. We started with home workouts. We started with home mobility stuff, and that is enough for them to go, I'm starting to feel really good about my body. I'm starting to feel really good on how I move. Do you not think that's quite fascinating that little small impact, that little small change that I've done with a handful of clients here, it started to change this little trajectory. And it's weird if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, like that little difference, that degree angle change, you don't really notice it at the start, but fast forward 30 days, well, that change is now, there's a good bit of where they could have been and where they are now. Again, follow that for the next 30 days, 60 days. It's crazy how much that 1 degree of change can make a massive impact. I think that's the whole Kaizen protocol. Is it? I think 1% better every day. So there is truth to that. Don't overdo your workouts. Keep it simple. Check out probably the next episode. I'll have the workout created so that you can come into my little training community and we can help you through that for the next 30 days just to give you an idea on what to do. Right, so mistake number 1, not tracking your muscle mass, trying your best to maintain your muscle mass. And mistake number 2 is overdoing your training, overdoing your exercising. Take it easy, chill out. Another argument of why this is not a great strategy at all. You imagine your body's the car, okay? Your body's a car. You're filling it up with fuel, which is aka the calories. So you put half a tank worth of calories in your body and you're like, I'm going to drive 500 miles, but your clock, tell I'm not a mechanic, your mileage in the car says you only have enough to go 200 miles. You're going to burn yourself out. You will feel this hard crash if you overshoot the exercising, because you need to remember you're undershooting the calories. And guess what's going to happen? It's then going to tap into the next point, which is the last mistake I see everybody make. And this is a double barrel one, but not diving into the behaviours that you have. Because if you find that if we don't fix the root cause of our behaviours behind food, then guess what? When you stop taking this drug, when you stop dieting, you're just going to swing back to where you were before. And as we explained earlier, swing back to a more extreme state than you were before. So there's the behaviour part of this conversation, and there's the other theme that, any diet works. No, any diet works until it doesn't, right? Diets is very, very complex, but what you want to do is work out and carve out a diet that suits you. Now, on Wegovy and Ozempic, I think there's a lot of feedback in that community that consuming fatty foods is really hard to do. It's hard to digest that just from all the digestive hormones that are getting kind of mixed about, and that kind of lead on to the side effects of nausea and the burping and the pooping and all that sort of stuff. Picking a diet that suits you, I would dumb this down, right? The only thing to try and focus on from a dieting point of view is going back to the first point, making sure we're trying to maintain as much muscle as we can by prioritising our protein and prioritising the next thing, which would be fibre. That's the only two things I would want any clients that were working with me through this process to be consuming. Now, the clients I have just now aren't tracking calories, so this is a fine line as well, because you might find that the whole tracking calories just makes you go in this spiral. It's a stepping stone that you want to get to, but it might be that that's 4 or 5 stepping stones away. So another thing, if you're thinking about protein, like every meal, making sure that there's a palm full of a protein source, chicken, beef, turkey, eggs, steak, whatever it's going to be, like it's a palm full of measurement. Use that as a simple measurement. Fibre is another important one, just from a digestive point of view. If you find that your poos are getting out of hand, then making sure you're getting at least 15 to 20 grams of fibre. This is for everyone. And then after that threshold, it's going to depend on how your body's responding to that. So you might need more, you might need a wee bit less, but 20 is a good aim for. I think the actual stat is it's like 40 for men and 30 for women, but I find that's quite vague as well. But I found anyone that's increased their fibre from 5 to 20 sees a very positive response on that. So not any diet will work. There's tons of research coming out where they're putting people on these drugs and they're like, here you go, just eat crisps, chocolate, eat your favourite foods, and anything is fine. It's funny how this is modifying our brain chemistry to think, right, we're not hungry, but it just shows you how powerful some of these sweet foods are. So they found that the group of individuals who were eating sweet food overconsumed the calories that they should have been capped at to lose weight. So it just shows you that overpowering signal is then going to do what? Because your stomach is going to struggle to digest that food because of the hormones that's going in your digestive tract. That's going to slow that down. That's going to make you feel like, I've got now that way when you overeat, you've got a sore stomach. All of that is going to be a side effect because you then are going to consume more food than what your body can handle as you're taking this drug, all because there's this powerful engineered bit of chocolate or sweet thing that's in front of you that you've ate a bite and you're like, oh my God, I want to put this off. Shit, I'm 5 bites deep and I've not even swallowed the first bit. So bear that in mind. Stick to whole foods as best you can. I've done fat loss episodes in the past. If you've never listened to them or watched them, definitely go back a couple of episodes and check them out, because the strategy's the same. I think we need to forget. I think we need to remember that this weight loss drug and fat loss drug and weight loss in general is all the same thing, right? It's this big circle, and the big circle is categorizing all these into one message, doing the whole Illuminati hold here. The one message is that we're trying to find ways that your body consumes less calories and burns more. That's the process that it comes down to. How we get to that process can be aided through weight loss drugs, and can be aided through understanding your behaviours. It can be aided through the habits and the regimented structures that you have out daily life. But if we don't tap into the behaviours and the structure side of things, when that tool of the weight loss drug is taken away, or when that diet isn't on hands anymore, then it brings all these emotions out, and it brings you back to square one. So if anytime you're stressed, you find yourself, you smoke a cigarette, and then you find after you smoke a cigarette, you need to be eating a packet of crisps. You've paired that behaviour because it's something you've done for 10 years. Then it doesn't matter what drug you're on or what sort of modified behaviour chemistry can happen. When that's taken away, and if you've not paid attention to that behaviour, then that will come back fairly quickly. Now, behaviour change is an interesting one to go into. It's probably going to be its own episode because there's tons of stuff to dive into, but it's something to think about just now. Have a think of some of the behaviours that work in your favour, some of the behaviours that you find don't work in your favour. If there's one behaviour to add into this, and if it's the one thing you take away from this episode, every time you eat, go a 10-minute walk. After it, not at the same time, bit awkward eating your dinner with a plate out and about in the street. 15-minute walk, I'll even go one lower, right? 10 to 15-minute walk after every meal really helps with the whole digestive process, and it really just helps the body start to kickstart this healthier metabolism, starts increasing the hormones that's in your body that positively start to get the machine working, burning the body fat that you're wanting to burn, albeit it's not necessarily just about that, but it's just getting that machine, it's getting the car, it's getting the wheels turning, and it's getting you moving in the right direction. It also just helps digest your food. I think this is one of the most overlooked things, that we just put anything in our mouth because we like the taste of it, but it's like, oh man, I'm on the pan for like 45 minutes after I eat that food. Why the fuck do you keep eating it? You know what I mean? Yes, it tastes good, but is that a sacrifice you're ready to trade off? And I say this to clients all the time that work with me, and they're like, oh yeah, I just liked it, but you're right, I guess I could have something else. Damn right, you could have something else. There's a ton of different things of what you can put in your mouth to give you that same satisfied feeling of, oh man, that tastes good. And look, sometimes you need to go through the journey of having the Domino's pizza 5 or 6 times before you go, you know what, I'm fucking done with this. I do not like this feeling. So make yourself consciously aware, right? Be consciously aware of your choices. No judgment. Judgment, I think, can have its place, but if I'm being honest, most of you guys who are judging yourself are already too harsh on yourself, and it's not been working for you for 15 years, 10 years, 5 years, because it's led to you now potentially thinking about using a weight loss drug. So let's just speak to ourselves a wee bit kinder and just recognise, what's actually going on here? Am I eating because I'm hungry, or am I eating because that thing happened there? And whatever the answer is, there's no right and wrong. It's just going, didn't realise that. And this is where you can start to interchange the behaviour part. And that's going to be a future episode. Well, I wasn't sure how that would go tonight, but I actually think it went not bad. I can actually feel my eyes getting puffier and puffier. So I feel great. I might not look great. So if you're tuning in on YouTube, leave a little comment below. How do I look? Am I looking all right? If you're watching on Spotify, you can now comment on Spotify, which is pretty cool. So I'll be replying to both comments there. Look, if you made it this far, just want to say thank you. We're not missing these Monday uploads. Whenever you're listening to this, even if you don't listen on the Monday, I make sure I deliver, right? Setting ourselves higher standards is a good thing to do. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode. You know the score by now. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing on YouTube. Leave a little comment, like the video. These are all things that really help the show grow. And especially if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Podcast, if you could consider leaving a little 5-star rating, that would mean the world to me. Again, it helps push the podcast to potential new listeners. And yeah, let's wrap up there. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week, whatever it is that you're up to. The next episode is a very interesting guest that I don't think anyone's going to expect that I would have brought him on the show. So I'm very excited to release that. There's a lot of juicy gossip in that. Subscribe, notifications on, and I'll see you on the next one.